And we're live. Hello.
Hello.
All right, so we're live. Hi, everyone, or just hi to the women joining me today. I'm Tanya Justin. We are having a virtual happy hour to connect us across time zones to talk about education issues. Since we were doing this anyways, we decided to broadcast it and invite others to join us. So to get it started, and we're going to keep this very casual, by the way. I'm going to talk a little bit about who's joining us today, and then we're going to keep moving forward with the agenda, as fluid as that agenda might be. So I'd mention that if you have any questions or want to introduce yourselves, if you're joining us, please do so. Just use the hashtag #3WEDU. There is a party at Patrice's house, as we can tell. So, and there's a party at lots of our houses. So there will be kids and random people joining us as well. So, first with me is, I love this. We have Laura Pasquini, at Laura Pasquini, and she is running tech support. We have at Prof Patrice. That's right, it's shortened, right, Patrice?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and she's joining us as well. We have Nori Murphy Barajas at NoNoni28, or if you do No Nori28, somebody from Brazil will tweet you back. Happens to me often. And then we also have Jessica Notter at JL Knott. And so this started as I was posting on the blog today because several of us used to meet one-on-one or in small groups and have chats about different things that were going on, or maybe have virtual happy hours because we miss seeing each other in between conferences. So then we sort of said, hey, why don't we, as a larger group come together? And then we thought, hey, why don't we even open this up to other people? So for the last couple months, we've met and sort of sketched out what would be fun and so forth, and inviting everyone to join us. So if everyone wants to grab a glass of wine, if you haven't already, we're going to kick off this Beyond Introductions and talking about what we have in our glasses. And so who wants to talk first about what they have? Jess, I think you should, because you were really happy about those ducks on a bottle.
I have Maxwell Creek Sauvignon Blanc, and it doesn't taste very good, honestly, but I put some sparkling water in it, and I really like the ducks. So, I'll put that on Twitter just in case you don't have anything better to do.
Nice. And did you mix it with a spritzer, right?
LaCroix grapefruit.
Makes
in my
everything
ceramic
better.
Party cup.
Yes, is that ceramic?
It is. It's very fancy.
Oh my God, I want one of those.
I will find you one.
That would be so awesome. All right, who's next?
Can I ask the vintage or year on that, Jess? That would be 2013.
Oh. I'll go next because I haven't quite made it to the wine yet, and I'm only on the Polar Seltzer right now. And the vintage is 2015.
Nice. We like it aged or ripe. Nori or Laura, what do you have?
Well, I'll go next. I'm kind of a buzzkill because I'm on a food cleanse right now. So I'm drinking. I know. Have you ever not seen me with a glass of wine in my hand? I know. Don't kick me out. Don't kick me out.
Laura, can you expunge her from this?
I'm going to drink again for the next show. I promise. I'll drink again soon. Have faith in me. But I've got a nice blended, it's cherries with coconut water and some lime juice. But it's in a wine glass, so I'm kind of a cool kid.
Okay. Whatever
we
you
will
say.
I was going to say, we will say we're at different time zones. I got a shout out from the Aussie folks, the ones down under. It's just morning there, so they can have a cup of joe. You can have a tea. There's no excuses. We just want to know what you're drinking, and we prefer
Irish
wine.
Coffees, mimosas,
sure.
Bloody Marys, all good morning drinks.
If you're not at the office, of course.
Yeah,
I'll go next. I'll tell you what I'm drinking. It's our House Becker. a Reserve Merlot. So this, I call it our house wine because we buy it in bulk at the Costco. Thank you very much. It's almost a 90-point wine. It's pretty delicious, and it's new because they no longer carry the claret. But Becker is a Texas wine, and so I've embraced my home and native state
Support
of
local.
Texas. Yeah, support local. What do you got there, T?
The same as always. This is my house wine. Marcus James Merlot. Oh no, Malbec, excuse me, not Merlot. We gave that up. And so I buy this for $3.99 a bottle at my local corner store, which you could refer to as bodega. So this is amazing. You can actually get like a case of it for, I think, under $50. It's very tasty.
I just found it on a great website called Cheapskate's Wine Guide. So, well done.
Oh my gosh, that's nice. Well, I looked online and it was like $8 or $9 a bottle, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's hilarious. It's also available at my Italian grocery in case the bodega's out. So we have a backup, always.
That's great. So the next kind of section, and for those of you who aren't tweeting, we do have an open Google Doc, and I'm sure it's been tweeted out and reshared. You can ask us some questions. This is pretty flowing. We want to have essentially a central topic or theme we want to go around, but we might go on tangents, and that's okay. And we probably want to hear from you if you have some ideas and opinions, which the people we know in education do, and that's why we love you women out there and men who are listening and tuning in today. So the next kind of corner we're going through is the wine box moment of the month. So this is like a soapbox, but instead you might be on a classy wine box, maybe a crate, and this can be something where you share what's happening, an issue, a latest rant, something that's going on, a trend. So who's got one of those today? I tried to think of a rant, but I just couldn't. I tried so hard. I even Googled like stuff that usually makes me really upset, but just this week I'm not prepared. I tried.
Last time we had lots of rants, remember?
Yeah.
Just a heads up, Robin to go is joining us. I see she tweeted out, so I'm glad she's drinking with us today.
So one of the rants that we had last week was how many of us look at our calendars and find that from the time we get to work to the time we leave work, it's entirely filled with meetings.
Yeah.
And the after-hour work that takes up our time, and the volunteer work that many of us do.
I have a solution. I did aggressive calendaring where I just had no meetings, and it worked.
I think they call it officially defensive calendaring,
Yes.
but I like that you're calling it aggressive calendaring.
It was all caps. It was all caps. No meetings. Felt like I was yelling, no meetings, and it worked.
I like it. Absolutely.
I think you do have to
Do any
block
of you
your
use
time.
any other strategies?
Yeah, just make everything a meeting. Like, I'm going to yoga, meeting, very important. I'm reading at home quietly or doing some writing quietly, meeting, very important. Make it private. I don't care.
Yeah, I block stuff out through the week that I kind of look at my weekend as a giant thing, and I make sure that I put chunks of things. And you're right, I do call them something really cryptic, so that when people try to make meetings with me, they fit in places in my calendar that work well, that I still have balance.
I always had the problem when I did that, though, that, those things ended up falling off because I had to take a meeting with this person and had to take a meeting with this person, and I had to do it because there is a deadline coming up, or it was something really important, and next thing you know, I have 40 plus hours of meeting, and then when I get home at whatever time, then I actually can check my email, respond to email, and actually do work. And next thing you know, you're very easily working, 16-hour days. So did you guys have any other strategies besides defensive calendaring that you've used?
When you do the defensive calendaring, put something really weird there so people are afraid to ask you about it.
Well, it was me myself letting stuff fall off, pushing off yoga or pushing off whatever, because I just couldn't fit it all in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't help with that.
And I think we started talking about this because everyone has a resolution or they set goals at the start of a new year or even a new academic term. And I think a lot of it is honestly just committing to it. So pick one thing you want to keep on your calendar that you will go say it's very important X, and no one needs to know what it is, or it doesn't. It can be cryptic if it has to be. That's really unfortunate. We'll get to that one later. Ugh.
Yeah.
But I think you need to just hold on to it and keep whatever that one thing is you're working on. Like you say, you're learning to play ukulele, like Jess and I, or you're wanting to be a better runner, or you want to at least spend some time reading, or spending time with your kids. Who knows? Just own it and pick that one thing and do it really well.
Yeah.
I did yesterday, so I've had just kind of a busy few weeks, which is expected every now and then. Like, I'm not upset about it, but it's been a really hard couple weeks. So yesterday at lunch, I went and played cardio tennis. And there's something about running until you can't breathe anymore and whacking tennis balls really hard. By the time I got to work, oh my gosh, I got back, I'm skipping in the building. Hey guys, what's up? Like, it was great. We ordered a little inflatable punching bag for our office, so if anybody feels, kind of stressed out, they can bop the bag. That was a couple of the instructional designers in my unit kind of ordered that. I'm like, I support it. Let's find a place for that thing. That'll be awesome. So yeah, maybe try whacking things like tennis balls and stuff.
There's a downside to that. I took kickboxing once, and then when I left kickboxing, I just was like opening up a Pandora's box. So then when I got home, I just wanted to continue to be physically aggressive. And I couldn't just do that. 1 hour just was not enough. This was when I was working on my doctorate at ASU, though. So sorry, Nori, what'd you say?
I said you Lucy-Lued your way back to the office.
Well, then you get back to the office and you just want to start, like, chopping people or showing them your roundhouse you've been working on.
Here's the tip.
There could be a downside to that.
You gotta underestimate the class, because I skipped in there like, cardio tennis, this would be great, and then it was not. I was so tired. Like, there were old people running past me as I walked between the courts. I was like, I'm dying.
Nice.
So yeah.
So the American Airways had a good article on some sort of getting your rage or anger out or stress out, and they have these things called break rooms or smash rooms. And
wow.
So we have one in Dallas, so that's the way to talk about. There's one in Toronto. There's one in a bunch of cities. Ironically,
is this American Airlines?
Yeah, American Airways.
Okay.
I'll find it when I'm done talking about it. But a very funny point for those of you who know my in-house, I call sommelier, which relates to wine. I won't say his name for protection of innocent bystanders in Dallas. But there was, I shit you not, a woman wrote, there was this guy who was my boyfriend who was a sommelier, and I found out he was cheating on me, so I wanted to set up wine glasses and smash them with a golf club. That was her break room thing. I started laughing, and my partner in crime were like, oh God, that's our friend.
That's nice. So what we had set up to today was we felt that like we could have like a tasting flight, so a bunch of different topics that we could talk about. And I think it might be a good time to transition to the first topic, which I agreed to sort of break into. Because one of the things that comes up when your calendar is meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting is you start walking into these meetings realizing maybe you don't even need to be in this meeting. This could have been a 5-minute phone call. It could have been a virtual meeting. And so you really start questioning, like, do we actually have to physically face-to-face have a meeting or synchronously, or is this something that we can handle over email? And I think sometimes the face-to-face meeting is the easy one because we don't have a lot of time to do work. So next thing you know, you're in a face-to-face meeting, and people are actually doing what they were supposed to do maybe before the meeting or a week ago, and they're doing it in the meeting. Or you come together and you have a meeting and nobody quite remembers why you were there, or nobody took notes from the last meeting, so you're just redoing it over. So it becomes a little bit of an issue with efficiency. So one of the first topics that I had brought up when we were talking last month was this whole idea of pushing time. I felt lucky at the time that I would not let any meetings be booked before 10 o'clock, and I think it was like after 4 because that's happy hour somewhere. So I had a little bit of flex time there. But it's one of the things that really frustrates me, and I guess too, as I've been like out and around and talking with different campuses about innovation and so forth, that we see this move, right? So we're moving to online learning. We're having more blended learning. We are having more competency-based education because students need to push time. They need more flexibility. You know, what's really interesting, though, is that we're not doing that in our workplace. We're not doing that in higher ed. So many people are still punching the 8 to 5. And so I teach classical management theories. It's part of my organizational communication class I teach. And I mean, the idea of a 40-hour work week and this time, I mean, this was invented in the early 1900s. And it was really about the fact that, and this is when unions came about, not wanting to take advantage of the worker. And it was the idea that we would have this amount of time to produce, and this was mainly obviously in the manufacturing industry, but we're not in the manufacturing industry anymore. And yet we're all still constrained to these very odd times. So it's interesting when universities are like, hey, let's go online, let's do competency-based education, but you still need to physically report here from 8 to 5. And so, you know, last month we were talking is like, why are we not changing the structure and how we work in higher ed? Why do we insist on still having this 8 to 5 structure in which we're supposed to be productive? And we all know that working 40 hours a week with an 8 to 5 schedule does not make anyone productive. If anything, it can make people unproductive. So, so this is one of my frustrations because I'm not very creative at certain times of the day, and I would like to think that I have 7 days and to figure out when I can do my work most productive. And so I don't know. So that's just sort of the deal. If people have ideas, please tweet them out, or rants, or information. One of the things I brought up last week was that it's called Go Row. It's results-oriented work, where you give your staff like, hey, here are your goals. Go do it. Go do it whenever, wherever, and so forth. Nori?
I was thinking that of an occasion once where I was talking to somebody about wanting to work from home to be more productive. And I had a colleague tell me that the job I currently had was measuring the wrong end of me. And I thought that was kind of interesting because it's true. We measure seat time in so many places now where seat time really isn't the actual measurement of productivity or success.
Well, and I think that's the thing is we talk about how do we document student success and student outcomes. Well, let's just talk about how we're documenting those in the workplace. And it goes one way or the other. We have people that probably aren't achieving productivity the way that they should be. And then also, we have the issue where there's some of us who it's causing us to have to work 80-hour weeks. And Patrice is going to talk a little bit more about that in a second here. I'm glad to see, again, we have more people, Amy Gibson on Twitter joining us, and this is really fantastic.
One of the things that we've been experimenting with at MSU, and we've done it for a very long time, but one of the things we've been trying is having core hours. So I'm a new manager, and I mean, I've only been doing it for 6 months, and so there are days where I'm like, yeah, I totally got this, and days where I'm just like, I'm going to crawl under this desk. Can somebody come get me tomorrow when I have to, I'm going to read this article and try to get better at stuff. But one of the things we've been trying is having core hours. So I have some people who are so creative and so good at what they do, but they work better at night. And so these core hours overlap. Like, as long as you're here during these few core hours, when most of your faculty are going to need to talk to you, then the rest is wherever you can get the work done. And the challenge there right now for me is honestly like measuring what they're doing. And I don't mean that by measurement, but if somebody comes to me and says, what is your team doing? I have to be able to say these 5 things or whatever, 500 things. So trying to get at that measurement without feeling like micromanaging or whatever. So that's what we're experimenting with right now, is different ways to get at that and different ways it could work.
And that's what we had talked about too, in my previous unit, which was instructional improvement. So we administered the LMS, and we did faculty development and those sorts of things. you know, for some of my staff, they liked having this sort of idea. For some of my staff, they really just would prefer to punch the clock, so to speak. Oh, sorry. You guys are looking at my scarf. Great. So, but, you know, we talked too about different things that you could use. For example, we used Basecamp, so we could identify what our goals were. People could input the tasks that they needed to be doing. I could see, especially too, because Jess and I were talking. Jess, how many people are you managing?
7 instructional designers right now.
Okay. Yeah, and when you have, and Patrice, how many do you oversee on your team?
We have 3.
Yeah, so when you have groups of people, you can't always, you know, we used to have these one-on-one meetings with everyone. Oh, more meetings, right? A one-on-one meeting with every staff member for an hour to see what's going on. But, you know, our staff grew very quickly to 14, and there's no way I could allocate 14 hours of my week just to one-on-one staff meetings. So you really have to start thinking about different ways to, you know, work that out. I should also mention that we have other folks joining us here on the back channel. So we have Rokansky is joining us. Michelle, thanks for joining us today. Please keep the tweets coming, your inputs, and she shared a nice blog post on the exact
Tanya,
topic that we're talking about.
Tanya, I was just going to say a little quick thing as you adjust your camera. That's what the show is about. For those of you just joining us, thanks for tuning in. This is a first podcast of 12 for the year. We've committed to 1 a month. It's new. It's where women who wine and work in education will talk with wine about education and other related issues. And today we're talking about the culture of work. And just bring it back to your idea about meetings and Basecamp. It was the creator of Basecamp, Jason Fried, had a really good talk a few years ago just about, do we always need to be working together and going to meetings and collaborating? Or what would happen next week if you were just to cancel that one meeting or those 2 meetings? No one would die. We'd still live on. You know, things would be productive. Just thinking about how we organize ourselves and how we work. It's not going to be the same for everyone, but in education, when we're trying to model what we want in the future for our learners and when they get into the workforce, how are we doing that if we can't model that with our own staff and faculty?
And,
yeah, I mean, how do we, oh, go ahead, Patrice.
I was going to say, Michelle mentioned that her team uses Slack as a way to increase the number of meetings they have, and our team has just started using Slack as well. But I don't think we've quite mastered it to the point where it's reduced the number of meetings, but it has really helped decrease having meetings where you're simply just updating people on what's going on.
Right. And a lot of meetings shouldn't be updates. They should be an email. And an email then that somebody makes time to read rather than having to always, and I'm saying I do value some face-to-face. I just think face-to-face shouldn't be our default mode. We need to move, we're moving beyond the idea of seat time, right? And federal regulation and the work we're doing are with accrediting bodies at our institutions. I think we really need to push to move beyond the idea of seat time in the workplace. And even when you hear people with remote working, they're still required to do 8 to 5. Well, you have to be online, you have to be on Skype from 8 to 5. And I don't think that's really allowing us to be as productive as we can be and push time, I don't write well 8 to 5. I write well from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. That's just how it goes. Patrice, do you want to talk a little bit more about our second topic?
Sure. So the other thing that we talked about last week was how women seem to take on a lot of extra activities that we started referring to as volunteer activities. Projects that are somewhat related to our jobs, but outside of our normal day-to-day business. And part of that stems from, just finding a lot of things that are interesting, wanting to be involved in a lot of things, and just simply wanting to make a difference and wanting to have, a greater impact on the world. But it also relates to having our voices heard. And so the discussion kind of turned to where a lot of times when you're at a meeting, you feel that your voice isn't heard. And I question how many of you out there have said something at a meeting only to have, a man at the meeting say the same thing and have people hear that statement. And so that concern that if you don't show up at the meeting or, participate in that project, then, of course your voice won't be heard. And so, that was one of the things that we wanted to hear from people about, was how you were managing that, what experiences you've had with, learning to say no,
Oh,
And
or maybe too, just,
yeah, I was gonna say, and not
oh,
just learning to say no, but I guess learning to say yes to the right things.
I think a lot of us, as we mentioned last month, like I feel like I have to say yes to everything because I want to be at the table and I want to be involved, and I feel like I have to work extra hard to get the recognition for what I'm doing in my own circles. And so I think there's this constant, I feel I constantly have to prove myself. Now that might be my mother's fault, or it might be the culture of academia. I'm not quite sure. But, you just stack on more. And then lots of other people, and sometimes men, I feel like, are not necessarily the ones that want to roll up their sleeves and do the work. They shoot out some ideas, and then who's actually going to make it happen? Do any of you have similar experiences?
I've seen that in play. Sometimes, though, sometimes I find it to be a function of gender, and sometimes I find it to be a function of culture, and that there is a certain type of person, male or female, who does like to just sit back and look very official and look like they're present, but when it comes to action, they know exactly how to be really quiet. And that there are eager people, male and female included, but who tend to like jump and be like, I do share that feeling, Tanya. I feel like if I don't say yes to something, then I will be excluded forevermore. And so it's kind of like that hamster wheel of, I want to appear eager and I want to appear engaged, and sometimes it's just silly because it's overwork.
The other idea I was thinking about is, what about the new professional or junior scholar or starting manager? So we're in different roles of newness, a few of us, or those will be entering in. New year, new goals, new jobs maybe. So what does it mean to not put it all out there in the workplace, or setting some boundaries when you have set expectations, yet going beyond may or may not help you further? So the example is, why even do something like this podcast? Well, we like to chat and have a banter and drink wine, so that's why. But additional other ideas. So why do something outside your norm? Where will that really get you, and what's the value add?
I think for a lot of us, it's just doing something that's personally meaningful. We want to make a difference and help others, mentor those around us, and, provide support for other women.
Well, on that note, one of the biggest things that changed how much I took on, I started my doctoral program last year, and I had to do an activity with my supervisor, who's also a mentor to me, Dr. Donna Redman, and she nailed it. She's in that tenure and promotion food chain. She's 1 year out from tenure, so she's understanding how you peel things away that are non-essential. And so she sat me down when I started the program, and she had me make a list of everything that I was doing. And then, as my supervisor, she demanded that I only do things that were essential. And so that she helped me really put my eagerness to participate in perspective. So when I came to her saying, "Oh, I'm going to start this new project with so and so," her mentorship and her leadership was, "No, is that essential to what you're supposed to do? Like, how does that fit in with the function you perform here at our university? And if it doesn't fit in exactly right now in your life," she would just tell me not to take it. And it was the opposite. It was like this huge relief of like, "Oh, you're right. That would really make sense for me to just pare it down to what I'm doing." And I don't think anybody's ever really given me that kind of permission, especially not somebody who I directly report to. And that was amazing.
See, I'm lucky because I do have that, as I work, for some pretty great supervisors and things like that. And so I did have that in my PhD program, and that was really helpful because I'm super eager, and it's because I want to do everything that's interesting and make a difference and all that. And so the defensive calendaring idea came from my supervisor, who was like, "Whoa, hey, listen, you feel stressed, okay, here's how to kind of handle that. So I do feel like I'm in a really good situation, and I couldn't ask for, a better environment in that way, because they're also saying, hey, get rid of some of this stuff so that you can go chase this other stuff that maybe we've thought about doing or didn't have time to do or that you're interested in. So I realize how fortunate I am, and that makes weeks like these where it's super difficult and like just too much to do, it makes it easier to handle.
I think it's about being present too. We talked a lot about being involved in so many things and having our days full of meetings. And without that time that you're talking about, Jess, I think our minds are just constantly in a state of multitasking. So even if we are taking a break or spending time with our family or whatever the case may be, we're not really present.
I think you're right. I mean, how many meetings do you go to where nobody is paying attention to anything that's going on? Somebody alluded to that earlier. Everybody's on their laptop, but nobody's doing anything related to the meeting. So that's one of my challenges right now, is how can I kind of make it clear that, hey, this meeting is great for brainstorming or whatever, but you have to choose to do it if you want to.
I think you bring up a great point when we're talking about, meetings and face-to-face time and those sorts of things, sort of looping back a little. But, as Patrice mentioned, face-to-face probably shouldn't be for updates. Those can come in different ways. When I think of planning a face-to-face meeting, I'm thinking about, why do we all need to be in the same physical location, looking at each other, hearing each other, and so forth. And I think that you bring up a really great point. You have to pick activities, and there's been research on this, the 80s and probably earlier, about which medium is most appropriate for which organizational tasks. You guys have heard me talk about Daft and Langle media richness theory from 86, and they talk about which tasks you do in organizations with which mediums. And it's just like we forget about that. We are in such these like meeting culture, meeting centric organizations that we don't think like, if I'm calling everyone to have a face-to-face meeting, then there needs to be a reason that we're there face-to-face, and whether that's brainstorming or solving a product or collaboratively building something, and so that's, yeah, absolutely.
And we've talked about this, about like being purposeful in the meetings, and I read that taxonomy of workplace meetings. So Alan had something just 2014, but talks awesome. About like giving examples. And my colleague, I went to go visit an old friend of mine that's in Seattle. Her boss actually, I met her. She's the vice provost at UW for their student affairs, and she does kind of standing meetings where they give 60 seconds updates, which she's like, I think it really goes up to 25 minutes. But it gets the, did you know what I'm working on happening? And they do that almost every day. So the actual work meeting is a productive work meeting where they have a project that everyone's involved, all hands on deck, all ideas out, and it's problem solving. So kudos to Leanne at UW, and just some ideas and strategies that they're trying to think about that are different. I think in working with staff that are there on a regular basis, and then also this would also engage your faculty and researchers that come every now and then to meetings, is don't treat it the same, mix it up, mix up the format, the environment, whatever it is.
Well, and that's so true. All agendas are not equal. So if your puppet master or the host of your meeting just runs the same meeting regardless of the purpose, and Laura, you did remind me, I pulled up that that article you've shared with us, Understanding Workplace Meetings. It's a taxonomy. It is a great read for any of you out there interested in just thinking, like kind of getting a larger grasp on what kinds of meetings there are and how they could be run differently.
And for those of you interested in the back channel, we will curate any resources and things we talk about, because we tend to go on rants, and then one of us will go search for it, and then we'll tweet it, and then we'll storify it. So we'll get a list of that for you at the end of the show. Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think, Laura, you bring up a good point, too, is that it's really good with your team to build transparency, I found. So it doesn't work necessarily always one-on-one, people just to be working on stuff, even if they're individual sorts of projects. people want to know what other people are working on. Just, I don't know, there is sometimes this competitive, are we all working this hard sort of thing I've come across with staff. I think also, it could be one person's working on something that somebody else can help. So I think it's good to have, to have that transparency. Now, what we used to do is we had a Google Doc, and everyone in the Google Doc would put an update on their projects or sort of what they're working on. But I like the idea of sort of 60 seconds. I don't know about every day, especially if you have a staff of 15 or 25, that, that starts to be really hard. But anyways, just I think building transparency can be really key in productivity as well.
And
So
we
your
found
Slack could
to be
be
really useful for that.
I was just going to say your Slack could be your 140 character update. What are you working on today? And so it's going to be different for everyone, and it's funny that you guys mentioned a lot of like being present and being there and showing up. And some of us who don't show up a whole lot, like myself, that are starting to remote work or telecommute or distance work. So a lot of us do work in online or blended education, or deal with technology in a shape or form. So I don't show up a whole lot. So I'm okay with that, because I get a lot of different work done, and it works for my schedule. And I've always been, like, I've been able to have a few different bosses at University of Toronto, at University of North Texas, when I was a full-time staff member, say, hey, you're going to work from home, just kind of log what you're doing, and I could crank through like a web layout, a web design, or a wireframe for a website to different projects and ideas for curriculum. Now that I get to do it full-time, it's great. And so a lot of people are like, well, that's so easy. And I said, not everyone can be a remote worker. I don't have home distractions. Sometimes I do, but then I send him away, my big child. But like, I don't normally have anything going on, and I can definitely block my schedule a lot easier. And I think it helps the regular workforce. So I found a really interesting article, and I'll tweet it out, of just like how remote workers and a balance of the two, or allowing people to work in different spaces, can actually enhance your productivity in your own work culture. So that's something to think of, is a balance of who can work from somewhere else. Maybe not your office, but it could be a coffee shop.
Mm-hmm.
I think, though, you bring up a good point that, as we've mentioned before, not everyone is good at being a remote worker. Some people, as we all know, when we do remote work, sometimes you crave that face-to-face. You feel a little isolated. That's probably why I talk on Twitter a little bit more. Michelle had shared on Twitter, too, a blog post that she had. But yeah, I think there's great benefits, and I know I'm far more productive lots of days when I remote work, and I don't really have options, especially with traveling sometimes. So I think those are some great points, Laura. I'm going to switch gears here a little bit in our final 20 minutes to sort of move us on to some of the final topics. And so I want to turn it over to Nori and Jess. We wanted to talk a little bit about social capital and how that can be a challenge or an opportunity in the workplace. It is interesting as we talk about being remote. I think in some of the traditional higher ed, it's a little more difficult to build social capital when you're remote. It's easier for me to build social capital nationally or internationally because of Twitter than it is for me maybe necessarily to build it at my own campus, but I've been at my own campus face-to-face for a million years. So Nori, do you want to kick us off in talking a little bit about networks and social capital and how that can be a challenge or an opportunity for women?
Sure. I was just talking to my colleague Brian, who's in the back channel this afternoon. I went into the office, and then I came home to do this broadcast from my home office. So I'm kind of doing both. And I had pointed out that at my own institution, I have had various leadership roles, but quite purposely about 3 years ago, I elected to work on grants. And in doing so, kind of took myself off of the roster of regular work for the university. So I was doing things that were only grant related. And at the time, a lot of people thought that was a terrible idea, that I was going to get out of the loop, I was going to sort of lose in the power hierarchy by doing something that had a terminal date to it. So the grant I work on is a 5-year date. But what I pointed out was kind of what you'd said, Tanya, and it's actually how I know all of you. Because I've worked on grants, I have a lot more agility as to time and place and professional development. And I was no longer part of the hierarchy at the small university where I work. And there is something to that agility that a grant provided in the liberal arts for me that allowed me to have more professional development because, again, there was a downturn in the economy, so a lot of professional development money dried up, but the grant fund stayed static, so I was still able to travel, and through that have a lot more connections. And because of that, I have made connections with you, and I have made connections with people all over the country. I'm not sure.
And just to cut in, those are like really meaningful connections. I mean, this is why we're doing this, is because it takes us connecting with people at different institutions across the country to be able to talk about some topics that it's challenging for us to talk about on our campuses or with colleagues on our campuses. So it's great for us to have this, you know, this peer network and this, you know, these opportunities. Sorry, go ahead, Nori. Sorry, I just had to jump in. Like, you guys are awesome.
It's true. I think we have all found a lot of community with one another, and like really, yeah, I think it has buoyed all of us. I know all four of you at different times in your lives have really needed a close colleague and friend, and we've been able to develop that. And I think all of us have had some agility. I know Patrice, when I met you, you were just transitioning from one university to another. Jess, you and Laura were both still in your programs, and so you had some flexibility with time. And Tanya, you and I were kind of going from one thing to really grant-specific work. So the question was that a woman's ability to move forward, social capital, and providing opportunities. I would say that the five of us and many of our friends who are in the back channel have personalities that really are not, I keep wanting to find the word for the opposite of risk averse. Anybody want to tweet out a good buzz phrase? Because when you say the opposite of risk averse, it's just too long. And risk averse really describes a lot of institutions where I don't think I have thrived as a woman or as just an innovative thinker. But all of us here are not terribly risk averse. I think we're all able to function a little bit more highly in circumstances that aren't particularly known or aren't very clear what the outcome will be. And I don't know if that's, you know, innately female. I don't think so. I think it's just our personality types. But
we have a lot of grit.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a good word, and I don't know, that might be because maybe that's in our nature to kind of explore and do something different.
I think, though, you know, as somebody, you know, once said to me is like, you didn't get here by accident. You know, I don't think any of us got to where we got on accident. I think that it was that, you know, that motivation, that intrinsic motivation, that grit, whatever you want to call it, that got us to where we are. I think, though, at the same time, it's really challenging not only to know that grit or that intrinsic motivation and how we get where we are, and the, you know, amazing amount of work that we take on, almost an overwhelming amount. I'm sure there are many weeks or days that we are just thinking, what are we doing? This is a lot. And then at the other point is you look at other people who have made it there without any of that. So is it our grit? Is it our really wanting to do great work and taking it all on? Or, you know, do I need a Navy suit jacket with gold buttons?
You know what? Mine was mentorship, plain and simple. Meeting Tanya, meeting Laura. Our new CIO at MSU is really trying to develop this women in IT and like what are the needs there. Mary Nemec from the University of Nebraska, like, super helpful. So honestly, I mean, meeting you guys and meeting these mentors, even when MSU, you know, budget is way down, I've had the opportunity somehow, and largely because of you guys, to travel to some of these places and meet some of you. And so I think building that network has been so crucial for, you know, figuring out not only how to get where I want to be, but also where I want to be. So, you know, anybody who's out there wants to talk about that, it's phenomenal.
I have two things for you right now. John and Michael Berman are male listeners who said they like to respond to your risk adverse. They want to call it gutsy. Life, and Michael Berman said life embracing. And I'd actually say your quote that you had, Tanya, my colleague at University of Guelph said to me from our leadership programs, is you didn't get anywhere you are today without saying what you think and speaking up. So I'd go with some loudmouthness, and I'm okay with that. I'll own that myself.
I want something to
I
encapsulate.
don't know if I always was so boisterous. I think it's took me a very long time to find my voice. I think I worked my ass off. I think a lot of times I still don't feel necessarily that I belong here, and I'd like to propose that for our next session to talk about, you know, faking it until you make it and those sorts of things of feeling like you don't always belong. But yeah, imposter syndrome. I'd love for that to be a topic maybe next month. But so I don't know if I always said what was on my mind. I've just sort of come into that in the last few years, I think. But yeah, I love the term gutsy because I think, you know, we're trying to do what's right and what we believe in.
Yeah, I would accept gutsy. I like that.
Of course, Michael would say gutsy.
Thumbs up.
I'll give a shout out to two women.
Yeah, that was John, actually.
Sorry, I just.
How about danger prone?
According to my therapist, I only make safe choices. So I have been at UWM for 11 years. I'm working on that. I don't think I'm danger prone yet. Maybe after this bottle of wine.
Yeah, well, that we know is true, but we only have an hour here.
Jess, your idea of mentorship is really neat, and I think that could be a topic down the road too. Maybe mentoring. I just want to give a shout out to Emery Klotz and Josie Alquist, who are doing some mentoring around folks who want to speak and consult, but mainly speaking. So they want to nurture it a little bit, and they started this kind of like call for support. So I'm going to shout out to mentoring because that's my own personal agenda and research, and I think that's really been valuable for a number of us, whether it's those in the virtual room here or the back channel, but in other spaces. I think we didn't get somewhere without someone else giving us a lift.
And, you know, supportive people around you, supportive. So, like, my entire team is super supportive. I have supportive colleagues in IT. I wouldn't have been able to do any of this if people hadn't been like, oh, yeah, go try that thing, and if it fails, it fails. Just tell us what you learned. You know, that ability to accept failure and fail
to have that supportive climate, though, is really important. You know, a place where you can try things out or a place you can fail, and we talk about this with our students as well, you know, but a place of people who are really supportive and are looking at ways that, you know, as you're saying, Jess, that people can bring you up. I just, we have a final topic, too. At any point we can transition in. But Laura, I didn't know if you had anything to add on more about collaborating and meeting and how we can make that more productive, especially for remote workers, as you had talked about.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of it has been just thinking about your own schedule and the way you want to work. And those of us who do work on our own schedule, I think we're very fortunate and very few of us out there. There's a small percentage. I think it's something that I value, and if you've ever been asked to think about what you want to do for work in your life or how you want to work, that's a unique opportunity. And if you're this type of supervisor or employer who's thinking, maybe I need to be asking my colleagues more, I think you should do that. Like Jess had a good activity with her staff. How do I write this student worker position, or how do I write this other position? Well, why don't you have your current staff members start writing those descriptions and writing what that might look like? So yeah, I think I've already said it enough. I will give a shout out to Sarah Barnes, who said her go to risk-taking mantra is punk rock. I'm with her on that. Let's go.
Yeah, if you read her cartoon, you'd know why. we can tweet that out too. I wanted to share, when we were talking about that risk, I had a mentor. My most significant mentor was a guy named Bob Blackney back in when I was in K-12. And the first year I started to work for him, we were doing like technology training back in, like, it was like 98 or something. So things were fairly new, and technology didn't work any better then than it did now. And he took me aside and gave me this sort of, like, I don't know if it was a pep talk or a threat. I'm not sure what he meant by it, but it has stuck with me all my life. He told me if I wasn't failing at least 20% of the time, that I wasn't trying hard enough at my job and I was just doing the shit that I was really comfortable with. And it gave me this huge kind of epiphany of like, oh, okay, like I'm supposed to fail. That means I'm doing something I'm uncomfortable with, and that's a good thing in this culture. And I've just never been able to work any other way since then.
You know, I just realized I have to say something. I'm totally full of shit. So I do this a lot. But you know what, Nori, you raised an important point. Like we talk about this, there needs to be opportunities to fail and all of this sort of stuff. But I think for me, I sort of was brought up like there is no failing. You know, if you fail, you're homeless, or if you fail, whatever.
There's a lot of people that, yeah.
And I'm a type A personality, and honestly, with my team, with my work through the years, I just, even now, the idea of it's okay, I don't even know what fail is. We got to come up with a better word. I'm just not comfortable with that. So as much as I say I like opportunities to try new things or do whatever, I'm just sort of one of those type A people. Like, I hate using the word type A even. I don't know what that is, but
maybe
I just don't like
opportunities for do-overs.
Yeah, and even when you do a job interview and they ask you that one thing, like, when did you fail and what did you learn for it? And I'm like, dude, never fail. Never failed. Like, so I just need.
We lost you.
Yep.
Sorry, T, we cut you off because we don't believe that you never failed. So, out.
I guess, you know, a lot of work environments don't allow for failure.
Oh, I totally agree. And yet, working on grants, everything is a pilot. Like everything you do in a grant is you write out this proposal that you're going to try this thing. You're going to do it many, many years. These are your measurables, and there's a chance it's not going to work. And that's the point.
Cut them up. Yeah, cut them up in squares.
My fail is only an indication that this time out the gate it didn't work.
Yeah, and I know Jess and I have been talking quite a bit about design thinking, and that's one of the things that's been really great for our team is going through this cycle of prototyping and saying, oh, okay, well, that didn't work quite the way we thought it was going to, so we're going to try again.
All right, so we've come up with some topics already that maybe come for future shows. I'm just going to do a quick rundown. We've said mentoring. We've said whether it's like design thinking or lean thinking, startup thinking. We've said something around imposter syndrome, feeling, owner personality, something else, and we'll take suggestions from the group that are watching live. So.
Yeah, I'm really excited about all three of those topics. And if you all who are joining us have any ideas, please just tweet them out using the 3WEDU hashtag. And also, if you guys come across resources that you might, you know, think might be useful to the group and or want to invite some other peeps, please do. I know some of you actually wanted to join in the conversation, and we can definitely make, this is nothing formal, so we can definitely look to join you all in the future if you want to do that. That would be awesome. And so, and also I think it might be great to invite some people to talk about some of these topics. You know, you brought up Mary Nemec and what a great role she's been as a mentor to you, and she's been a great mentor for me, and I know there's others that are out there that we could bring in as well. Yeah. So, yeah, and I know Patsy Moskal also is always looking to promote women and their efforts, and there's lots of amazing women. So we'll see if we can get them on here. They just lurk on Twitter, but maybe we can get them to join us. So, yeah, so this is awesome. We have about 5 minutes left, so if you're tweeting out your ideas, Laura, I think our next meeting is, we're going to do this again February 17th, same time, so 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. I can't tell you all the rest of the time zones because I'm sure I'll mess it up.
Well, but we did early in Australia, and they said they grab coffee in Australia and New Zealand, but they're fine with that. It's the morning commute there, like at 7 a.m. It is 3 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern for us North Americans, and we'd love to hear from others. We have a couple of them over in the UK even tweeting, so thank you, Donna and Michael Berman and Brian and Michelle and others that were in the back channel. We'll curate all the goodness that you shared.
So our final thing for today, sorry Patrice, did I cut you off?
No, I was just going to say it was just a great session.
So yeah, this has been awesome, and we've been doing this for a while, just privately. This is the first time, that we've broadcast it. But I really love these conversations, and I know lots of us talk, beyond this, but this has really been wonderful, and it really helps us bridge the connections between conferences. And maybe for those of you going to OLC Innovate in New Orleans in April, we could meet face-to-face, those of you who don't know us, or even if you do know us, or whatever works. But our final thing, I think, is that we're supposed to do a toast, roast, or boast. So does anybody have something they would like to cheers, accomplishment they would like to talk about, or something they'd like to roast? Jess.
My team has been on the ledge for 2 weeks, probably. And I'm trying to make it better, but man, if I didn't have the team I had, I would be, like I said, I would have dug a hole in my backyard and crawled in it with a bottle of whiskey and just waited. So I cheers my team.
Cheers. Your team can make all the difference sometimes, man. Cheers.
I'd like to second that cheer. I would say the same about our work situation, and I work with a fabulous team, and without them, it would be a lot rougher.
And maybe that's a future topic, is how do you choose a team that's just going to make every day more awesome? I, too, am so lucky to have, been, blessed. I don't even know why I'm using that word, but with the team that I have, they're amazing and they rock, and I'm glad we just all accidentally ended up together. So very cool. Any other cheers, roasts, or boasts?
A little cheer for Laura, who got a lot of the technical stuff ironed out today.
Yeah, right?
You beat me. I was just like, yeah.
I have to give
Laura.
a shout out to my old Break Drink crew. We weren't drunk. Break Drink crew, where we come and talk about this. So Jeff Jackson, Julie Larson. We used to do some podcasting, video podcasting, and it's fun. Yeah, and so that's been a while since I've been off the grid. We did that 2010 till 2013, and we might make a comeback sometime, but we'll see. For now, this monthly podcast with you ladies is great. My shout-out's going to be to my LTech 3010. It's a personal development course. I've been asked to do a fun redesign, so I have a mega course. So instead of having 35 to 45 in an online class, I'm going to have 300 and something with a bunch of TAs and graders, so like almost close to 400 students in this. How do you get yourself to work and develop professionally? And I have some fun people in it, like a broadcaster for one of the Dallas Morning News, who, my God, he might write about me publicly because I'll talk about him here. And also just the other shout out I have to the OLC Innovate steering committee. They've done some amazing work. And if you're not coming, I'll do a plug in April. There's going to be some fun happening before the Jazz Festival. We're going to talk about how K-12, higher ed, and workplace learning can think about ways to innovate structure, pedagogy, and more. And so there's one more open call, and I'm happy to tweet that out, that you should submit a team proposal. It will require you to collaborate, but I think it's a good opportunity to bring a problem and a solution, not just tech. I want to know about problems and solutions in your learning spaces.
It's a great place to meet people, too. I mean, I met all of these women at Online Learning Consortium conferences. Just Innovate has me so excited. The program, Karen Vignari, the conference chair, like Paige McDonald, the program chair, like, happy birthday, Karen. I mean, this is going to be a phenomenal
it's Karen
conference.
Vignari's birthday today. Happy birthday, Karen. All right, so I think that wraps us for today. So thanks, everyone, for joining us. Please tweet out comments, feedback, articles, all of that good stuff. We'll meet here again, same bat time, same bat channel, February 17th. So thanks again, everyone.
Bye. And keep tweeting, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
That's awesome.
Good night, everybody.